Chile's dynamic and cosmopolitan capital of Santiago lies in the shadow of the Andes Mountains. The country's Ministry of Foreign Affairs is housed in the Palacio de la Moneda. From here, Chile rules its most remote and one of its smallest territories, Rapa Nui, Easter Island. Valparaiso, with its beautiful port, is the contact center between the metropolis and the island. 2,350 miles separate the island from the continental coast. On a fast boat, the trip takes 7 days. By air, little more than 10 hours. Whichever the method of transportation, one must go far into the vast expanse of the Pacific to search for a tiny, isolated island. So isolated that its ancient inhabitants called it the navel of the world. The product of 3 volcanoes that left it in the shape of a triangle, Easter Island has only 45 square miles, and one can travel around it in a few hours. It is occupied by little more than 1,500 inhabitants. The arrival of ships, in ever-increasing numbers since 1966, is a memorable event. The islanders gather early to meet the boats that carry relatives, letters, and packages, new faces, news from the continent, and each arrival demands a celebration with music and dancing. The capital, the only populated area, is Ango Roa. A dirt road leading to the wharf is the town's only street. There are no pure descendants of the original inhabitants left. The majority of the population is Polynesian, their ancestors having come from Tahiti some 3 centuries ago. Many have a mixture of European and American heritage. A century ago, Catholicism was introduced on Rapa Nui. The priest of the only church is the Bavarian Capuchin, Sebastian Engelet. Father Sebastian is an excellent source of information on the history of the Easter Islands and has made a careful study of the language spoken before the arrival of the Tahitians and Europeans. Noting the words that have survived in the present-day vocabulary, he compiled a grammar and a dictionary. Easter Island was taken by the Spanish in 1770, already having been explored by the Dutch, the French, and the English. And in 1888, the island came under the mandate of Chile. The population is still unified under the one flag. Much to the detriment of the soil, the island was leased for sheep raising until 1954. Agriculture does not flourish easily, but once the clumps of stone are removed, different crops can be cultivated. The sea abounds with fish that are a source of food for the islanders, both day fishing and night fishing, with torches and spears, and they're common, and probably the same methods were used by the earliest inhabitants. A group of nuns from southern Chile who have been on the island for some time have contributed to the education of the islanders and have been particularly instrumental in encouraging the local crafts. Besides his other accomplishments, Father Sebastian has identified and made an inventory of archaeological specimens, such as these fish hooks, which were used by the ancient islanders. Although there are indications that the island was populated by the 9th century, nothing is known of the origins of these first people of Rapa Nui. It is an ethnological mystery clarified only by means of conjectures, which in time prove themselves inconclusive. When the Dutch navigator Jacob Roggeveen discovered the island on Easter Sunday of 1722, he found two separate ethnic groups. One was tall and muscular, with large ears, the other small and agile. They had achieved a degree of civilization as evidenced in the development of the wedge-shaped writing on wood tablets. The writing is remarkably similar to that of an ancient Indian culture that had disappeared several centuries prior to the arrival of man on the island. early explorers also found a relatively developed agriculture and a progressive method of construction. Most important, they found the monoliths. Rapa Nui has changed little since the 18th century explorers came here. Its soft hills, easily accessible, are still covered by tall, dry grass. The coasts are rugged with steep cliffs, and swelling waves bat against them with vibrating force. Volcanic rocks are strewn on all sides. It looks as if the eruption had just taken place, that the lava had not yet hardened. Hundreds of monoliths are scattered all over the island. There are said to be over 700 of them, some totally uncovered, some half buried, some completely buried, some having been left only partly carved. These impressive human figures, sometimes reaching a height of 40 feet, have certain conventional and uniform characteristics. The jaw and nose, very sharply defined, follow an ascending rhythm. The mouth is a simple cleft. The ears, with long lobes, extend a good part of the height of the head. The curiously constructed oblong-shaped foundations, sometimes found nearby the monoliths, probably served as houses for the priests or guardians for the Ahu. The statues known as mohai date back to the latter half of the 17th century, approximately 1680 or later, and were carved from the porous, dark gray-colored lava in the quarry of the Rano Araku, the great volcano. Sculptors executed each figure in a horizontal position. They left it adhered to the quarry by a narrow ridge on the back. When the work was finished, the ridge was broken and the statue freed. It was then moved down the mountain on its backside. Once on level ground, it was taken to the place where it would be erected alongside other statues or an altar or ahu. Some were placed inside the crater of the volcanic quarry, facing the lake in its center. There is one mohai that differs from the others, identified only with the monoliths of the Tiahuanacan culture on the Bolivian side of Lake Titicaca. And now we have the tutora plant, a species of reed from which the Indians of South America made boats, originated around the same lake and is also found on Easter Island. Since the distance between the mainland and Easter Island is so great, it is most likely that the seeds were brought by human hands. Engraved on the stomach of one of the largest mohai is a reed boat with 3 masts that again closely resembles those made by the Indians. That the voyage from South America was indeed possible was proved by the Norwegian explorer Thor Heyerdahl. On several of the Ahu bases where the statues are grouped, The masonry is identical to that seen on the walls constructed by the Incas in Machu Picchu in Peru. The stone slab